The Snakes, Lies, and Sex Trial. A high-profile trial that, well, my friend, it has enough twists and turns with drama, well, that would make it into a lifetime movie. Well, we're going to talk about that and a whole lot more on today's Charlie Crimebuster. What some people are calling, well, they're calling it the fastest minutes in podcasting. Well, hello and welcome to today's podcast. Well, we certainly have a high-profile trial along with a mystery that really has not been solved, get this, to this very day. The bottom line is they still do not know who really killed the victim. Well, we're going to attempt to answer that question for you today. First, once again, thank you for your listening support. We do appreciate each and every one of you who take time to listen to the podcast. You see, we look at today's true crime from a cop's perspective. And we always attempt to share with you some lessons we can learn from every podcast. Lessons on how to live better and more safe. Now, if you've not yet looked at the new project, please go to peacemakernetwork.com. Check out the project. We do want to make a difference in the lives of our heroes. We're adding resources every week for our heroes. And this gives you an opportunity to be a part of that support process. Again, go to peacemakernetwork.com. Also, please take the time to like or follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and do subscribe to the podcast from your favorite podcast platform. If you'd like to contact us personally, I'd love to hear from you. You can reach me at charliecrimebuster@gmail.com. We do welcome your positive comments and your suggestions and opinions about the podcast. Any ideas on future shows, well, they're going to be welcome as well. And as always, we always try to share a special gift to those who contact us. It's just our way of showing appreciation. Reach me again, charliecrimebuster@gmail.com. Now to our source story. I guess the best way to start the journey is probably to look at it through the eyes of Montgomery County Coroner David Colbert. You see, he responded to a crime scene after a 911 call was received by emergency services. That was back on June the 8th, 2017, the early evening hours. He responded to a 911 call of a male victim. That victim believed to be dead by a snake bite. He goes on to say, well, he says he walked into one of the most bizarre and dangerous death scenes of his entire 20 years as a coroner. To quote him, he says this, quote, "Someone being killed by a snake, well, it's not something that happens every day, especially in Missouri." Now, Colbert, he soon learned that the man that was lying face down in a pool of blood, well, that he was a guy by the name of Ben Renick, the owner of the business Renick Reptiles. You see, Ben, he was a world-renowned snake breeder. Body cameras on responding sheriff's deputies that night, well, it captured quite a wild scene. They were out holding shotguns in their hand. That's what Colbert said of the deputies. Their guns were out. They were walking into a death scene with thousands of snakes jumping at the cages. He went on to say it was just a crazy scene to be at. Now, the body camera footage, well, it shows sheriff's deputies all walking around, shotguns in hand, walking through the facility, lined with containers, well, of snakes, pythons, anacondas. Some of those snakes weighing upwards, get this, of 200 pounds. I can guarantee you there were a lot of officers that night that were thinking that there was a killer snake on the loose. One sheriff's deputy tells another, "I don't care even if it's a 5-inch long snake. If something tries to bite me, well, I'm going to light it up." Now, Ben's wife, she found his bloody body after she returned from picking up her kids at school. That was after her own workday at a spa she owned in nearby Columbia. She then called 911, and she also called Ben's brother, a guy by the name of Sam. And Sam was the first to arrive. He saw that what he thought was a snake bite on his brother's arm. He alerted authorities to the fact that there was a killer snake on the loose. He cautioned them to be very careful. However, Colbert, the county coroner, he says he soon made a surprising discovery. That's when he examined Renick's body. He went on to say the two marks that he has on his arms, he said, well, they're not from a snake. Furthermore, a shell casing that was found a few feet away from the body, well, that changed that investigation entirely. Colbert realized the position of Ben's body, well, it hid its true cause of death. That cause was homicide. Get this now. Renick had been shot, that's right, shot 8 times close at range. For some reason, Colbert said somebody just really didn't like Mr. Renick. That was because of the amount of damage that was inflicted upon him, and obviously from the bullet holes in the floor. This was something, he went on to say, the coroner, that was not just a random act. And in just moments, the focus of that investigation, well, it changed for Colbert. You see, he was now going from a cold-blooded serpent to a human who had killed in cold blood. Now, by all accounts, Ben was well liked, both in his small town of New Florence, Missouri, and around the world in the reptile community. You see, Ben lived on a farm there where he was found murdered. He had lived on that farm for nearly his whole life, building a life and a business with his wife, Lindley, at his side. Now, Sam Renick, Ben's brother, he lived nearby on the same property in a separate house. Investigators, they went on to learn that Ben had shipped his serpents all over the world, from UK to Japan. And those snakes in the Renick Reptiles facility, they were worth more than $1 million. Some of them were rare albino snakes, able to fetch prices of tens of thousands of dollars. You see, those facts, well, they made robbery as an initial theory. However, after a sweep of the building, well, authorities, they found out that no snakes were missing. Bottom line, you could say, well, you see, investigators thought that a snake was a suspect until they learned that, quote, a snake cannot pull a trigger. So next, we're going to take a look at the suspects in this murder case that could pull a trigger. A murder case that went cold for several years until it broke wide open. More about that in a moment, but now it's time for our Courageous Citizen of the Week. Now, most of the time, our courageous stories are all about citizens, but today we're going to include a cop, a female cop, who did one of the most courageous things I can imagine. You see, there's a Florida Highway Patrol trooper now. She's home and recovering after she used her vehicle, get this, to block a rogue driver that was speeding toward a pedestrian event that was taking place on the Sunshine Skyway Bridge there down near Clearwater. The agency talked about this in a news release. The driver, that was 52-year-old Christian K. Watts, she is of Sarasota. She bypassed an Interstate 275 closure. She also failed to stop for multiple law enforcement officers. That was before this trooper took her own vehicle, placed it between her and the runners that were running on the Sky High Bridge there. She put her car between that car and the runners. She was hit head on. Now they did arrest Watts, who was driving the vehicle, on charges of DUI, 2 counts of DUI, and 2 counts of reckless driving. And the Florida Highway Patrol, well, they applauded the actions of their trooper, Tony. Trooper Tony, a 26-year veteran of the patrol, who has the last line of defense to the Skyway 10K runners, well, she placed herself in harm's way to protect others. And that, my friend, this Highway Patrol officer. So think about that. The next time a Highway Patrol officer pulls you over for speeding, instead of getting frustrated, just be thankful that our fine Florida Highway Patrol officers are out there protecting others, even risking their own lives to save others. And that, my friend, is what we call here at Charlie Crime Buster our Courageous Citizen of the Week. Now back to our main focus. You see, Ben Renick, He's been shot to death. And as you know, in most investigations, you look to those closest to the victims. In fact, did you know that in approximately 79% of murders, most are killed by someone they know? So they began by looking at Ben's brother and his wife, Lindley. Both of them were checked for gunshot residue. Well, nothing was found, though. Interesting enough, according to Lindley, Ben and Sam, that's Sam, Ben's brother, had not been getting along that well, and the actions of Sam that night, well, telling the police that Ben had been bitten by a snake, and then even jokingly referred to himself as the murder brother that night, all of this, well, it put his own actions in the spotlight. You see, both the sons had inherited the farm from their father. It was put into a trust for them, and that did lead to some contentious issues between the two brothers. So it is easy to see why he would be a suspect, or at least a so-called person of interest. In fact, there was a paramedic who actually felt that the brother was the one responsible for the murder all the way up to the trial. However, the investigators, they did clear the brother from their suspect lists, and for a long time, the case went cold. That is, until the appeal of sex, or should I say the lack of it, well, it broke the whole case. You see, when Ben and his wife, Lindley, when they first got married, well, as most newly married, it appeared to be a perfect couple. Ben and Lindley, they had first met when they were teenagers. They reconnected in 2011. They hit it off right away. The relationship got serious pretty quickly. Now, Lindley, she had had a son from a previous relationship. But Ben, the kind man that he was, he became a second father to the child. And in 2014, well, they decided to tie the knot. And very soon after, they had a baby of their own. Now, Lindley, well, she found that Ben's passion for snakes, well, she found it interesting. She actually would work day and night, helped him with the snakes. She handled them, cleaned them, sorted through them. And then in 2016, well, they opened a second business, a spa in Columbia, Missouri. So we see Lindley wholeheartedly supporting the success of Ben's snake breeding farm. She was involved in the business. But it appears, now get this, that the snakes were not the only thing swaying, or I should say straying. Because now it has been revealed that at the time of Ben's murder, well, his wife Lindley, she was involved with not only one affair, but up to 3 different affairs. She had hooked up with a past boyfriend, hooked up with her marketing director of a spa, and she met another man on a sex site that promoted affairs. Now, in all fairness, this straying in her marriage did not mean that she murdered her husband. There's a whole lot of straying, but that does not mean that people who stray murder. See, after all, the police discovered that she, Lindley, had an alibi for the time of the murders. That alibi was supported by 2 others who worked with her at the spa, and her phone and text messages that day supported that alibi. But her third affair that led to another child and a quick hookup, this was with a guy by the name of Brandon Blackwell. But this relationship, well, it led to a nasty, nasty breakup, complete with no contact orders. Those orders were broken by Brandon, and it eventually led to Brandon himself being locked up for stalking charges. Now, during that time that she was having this breakup with Brandon Blackwell, well, Lindley had reported to police that Brandon stated that if she did not drop charges, move back in with him, well, then he would tell the police that she had murdered her own husband. So the police, they were forewarned about this attempt to get back at Lindley for Brandon. Believe me, police, well, we're used to people lying to us. And they would not take the word of a locked-up man who did not comply with no contact orders. They would not take his word for anything without real evidence. So who killed Ben Renick on that day? And what about this new thing called the Women's Murder Club? Well, we're going to discuss that in a moment. But now it's time for a crazy crook story. Now, you might take some comfort that in the United States, well, we're not the only country that has dumb crooks. This one actually comes from overseas. And it's the Derbyshire Police Department. You know, you often say that if you want to trap somebody, you could sometimes offer something delicious to your opponent to set up the trap. Well, that same trap was used by the Derbyshire police to catch criminals. Police there caught 19 criminals by offering them, now get this, a crate of beer. That's right, a crate of beer. The cops, they were undercover at the time, and to take advantage of it, they spread the news that they were people that were getting a full crate of beer free. They also informed them that, well, an individual had to contact the company, and that there was a time when they could go pick up their beer. Or, as you and I know, a time when the rat enters the trap seeing the cheese. Well, 19 of these criminals, they were called and told that they had won a free crate of beer, and they set up a place to collect their winnings. But after reaching the spot, well, my friend, there was no crate of beer or any other offer. But there were police officers right there waiting to catch these bad fellas. Well, these fellas, these 19, they do deserve being on the list of the world's dumbest criminals who easily got into the trap and were arrested because of their foolish thinking and this success of a sting operation that they called back there in Derbyshire as Rocky. So, my friend, the next time you get told that you won a case of beer, well, better check first to see if you're on the wrong side of the law. Or you may not be drinking beer for a long, long time. And that, my friend, is our crazy crook story of the week. Now, back to our main focus. Here is what I believe really went down with the murder of the snake breeder. Howbeit, there's still a little mystery there that, well, you're just going to have to entangle that one yourself. You see, Lindley, Ben's wife, she had a little different side that most people did not know about. She had complained to 2 of her employees that Ben was abusing her, both sexually and emotionally. She told them that she could not divorce him because he had too much money. He would use that to get an attorney, take away her kids. And these are the ladies that I call a part of a women's murder club. And my friend, this group just did not read mystery novels to find out who did the murder. They actually helped plan the murder. You see, this lady, Lindley, who was the wife of Ben, she was really good at manipulating others. Because let me ask you, would you go along with your boss if he or she wanted to murder their spouse? Well, she talked them into helping her solve this problem with murder. At first, they came up with a plan to poison Ben by putting pills into his protein shake. But when that did not work, well, Lindley, with the help of her murder club, well, they tracked down an old boyfriend, a guy by the name of Matthew Henry. He had been convicted of drug charges. This boyfriend went with her to Ben's place of work, and there Ben was gunned down with a gun that belonged to her boyfriend. But here's where it gets tricky. The boyfriend says that he gave the weapon to Lindley for self-defense, and that he simply went with her for moral support. Moral support so she could get her clothes and move out and then ask for a divorce. And that, to his surprise, Lindley then shot and killed her own husband. Lindley, she says that she had him alone with her for moral support, her old boyfriend, while she talked to Ben about getting a divorce. And that her old boyfriend, Matthew Humphreys, that he shot and killed her husband. Well, my friend, the fact is, I believe that both of these people were wrong. She was not going there to talk to Ben. She was going there to see him killed, either by herself or by Matthew. You see, this women's murder club, well, when others realized that they too could be charged with conspiracy to commit murder, well, my friend, I want you to know they folded like an old card table, and they turned around and testified against Lindley. And when it comes to who really pulled the trigger that day, well, I believe it was actually Lindley that pulled the trigger. And here's why I believe that. First of all, when she left that day, she wanted the police to think that she was not there at the murder scene. She had left the spa in a disguise. She actually had a hoodie on in the middle of the summer. And she did not take her own vehicle, in spite of the fact that she knew that Matthew's car, her old boyfriend, well, that car was a piece of junk. It had to be worked on constantly. and yet she did not want to be seen in her own vehicle at the murder scene early that afternoon. Then another thing, very suspicious. She left her phone at the spa. And while she was leaving on the way, she had her co-worker send a text to Ben, her husband. She had that text sent while she was on the way to the property, making it appear that she was back at the spa all that afternoon. You see, she was using all this as a way to set up an alibi. She even used other fake texts that were sent even after the murder. All of those that were sent to make her look innocent of the murder she was a part of that very day. No, she wasn't going there to talk to him about divorce. She was going there to murder her husband. And here, my friend, here is the real biggie. The reason why I believe it was Lindley that pulled the trigger that day, not Matthew. This he said, she said, I think can be solved with this one certain part of the story. You see, when she returned back to the spa, when she had her employee there, her friend in the murder club, she went into what is called the wet room, and she had her give her a full body scrub. And get this, with special emphasis on specially cleaning her hands. And you know what else? She wanted Matthew to take her clothes and get rid of them that day, the clothes that she wore. Now let me ask you, my friend, why would she do that? You probably already know the answer, don't you? Right? Remember the police checked for gunshot residue on both her and Ben's brother? You see, my friend, there is no good reason to get that kind of a scrub down and get rid of her clothes that day. No good reason if she was simply going to the snake farm to ask for a divorce. My friend, she went and she shot and she killed her husband that day. And that's why she wanted the body scrub, to get the gun residue off her hands. Well, my friend, justice was passed on. I say that sort of it was passed on, because both Matthew and Lindley, they are now in prison. He's in there in life with parole. Now, at first he was there for life without parole until he cooperated and testified against Lindley. And they gave her 16 years in prison. Both of them were convicted of second-degree murder. And in my opinion, neither of them are serving enough years for this horrible crime. This young man gunned down in the prime of his life. Cold-blooded murder. She gets 16 years, he gets life with the possibility of parole. You see, the bottom line here, friend, there's only one real mystery to this story, and that is which one of those people pulled the trigger. Which one do you think pulled the trigger? I'd be interested in hearing your own theory. You can reach me, charliecrimebuster, at gmail.com. That's charliecrimebuster at gmail.com. This is gmail.com. Now, my friend, let me share with you that there are some lessons that we can learn from this terrible, terrible story. Number one, never use violence to solve problems. And never allow yourself to get pulled into someone else's problem to the point that you get in trouble yourself. Remember the two employees that are part of the women's murder club? Well, they're very, very lucky that they got immunity. You see, they knew of the plot to kill Ben, and they did nothing to stop it. They actually helped plan it and cover it up. There's also another lesson that cops know, and lessons that you should know as well. You see, a person can use deception. They can manipulate others, and even use that manipulation as weapons. You see, this woman, she manipulated her employees, even an old boyfriend, to commit murder. She did not offer to pay them or force them. She just manipulated them with her charm and her lies. So, my friend, you should watch out. You should watch out about relationships and be careful that you too are not manipulated to do things that you would not normally do. Or, my friend, you could find that yourself could be manipulated right into a jail cell. So here you have it, a trial about snakes, lies, and sex. Now, I got to admit that the snakes, they got a bad rap at first in this story. But yet there were people involved here that, my friend, were truly lower than even snakes. They became involved in a murder plot, a plan of action to take another life. So, my friend, until this time next time, this is Charlie Crimebuster reminding you that in this day and time, you have to be alert to your surroundings. Be careful of the people you get involved in. So until this time next time, be safe, be alert for the life you save. Well, you got it. It may be your very own